Hey, Cookies here. We're going to jump right into talking about how to heal Mechagon Junkyard in Season 4 of Shadowlands. So before we get started, I am going to talk about the 3 bots that are present throughout the dungeon because they are very important and they're kind of the fundamental aspect to doing this dungeon effectively and why you see so many high keys already of this dungeon done. So there is a shock bot, a welding bot, and a grease bot, and you can collect all 3 of them. So just think of it as you want to collect all 3 buffs by the end of the dungeon. The sooner you can get all 3 buffs, the better, and each player can have all 3 buffs. So you want to let like DPS players and stuff get the bots first usually, but if you don't see people taking them, you should definitely grab them if you see them available. So first off, the welding bot is going to look like this. I'm going to rewind it just a tiny bit. So the welding bot looks like this. It's just a little robot and it has like sparks coming out of its mouth. The grease bot is this one that you see next to it. It has like this kind of black sludge just all around it, and then when you click on it, it'll spew out a bunch of like grease out of its mouth. So that's the grease bot. And then lastly, the shock bot is right over here. I'm going to walk over to it. Hopefully I don't fast forward too much. You can see it behind these mobs walking around. It just has this little like coil on its head that's all full of blue electricity. And all you do is you walk up to them and you're just going to click on the bot in order to collect it. There you can see the hunter is grabbing it right now. It'll say this little voice line, and then you can walk away freely and it will buff you. And then basically what it does, I don't have any of the buffs currently because I'm letting the other players get them, but you will have a buff that lasts for 2 hours, but it does not persist through death. So if you die, you have to collect new bots, and that's kind of where the difficulty of this dungeon can come in. Is if you die and lose bots and don't have any more to go collect, it can be a real, downside on how much damage and stuff your group can deal for the rest of the dungeon. So collect bots and then do everything you can to make sure that you do not die. It's very, very important to collect the buffs as early as possible and then to keep them, active without dying, because you only get so many chances. I think there's only like, if I remember correctly, I think there's only like 2 extra shock bots that you can even get in the first place if you do end up dying. So there's like 7 total, but I don't remember all the exact numbers. And for the locations and stuff of all the bots, you just kind of learn them. I don't have any resource off the top of my head. I'm just trying to remember where I knew they were back when I played in BFA. So I'm sure there's like a map out there or something, or MDT will have, the bots available. I think there's even a weak aura going around that has like all the locations of the bots on the map or something like that. So as weak auras start getting more prevalent, I think we're gonna have a channel in the Discord where people can just drop useful weak auras, and I'm just gonna keep a collection of like pinned weak auras that are really useful for the new dungeons, especially as we get into Dragonflight and there's rotating dungeons. I want to do the same thing where we just have a channel in the Discord where people can just post weak auras, and then if I find them especially useful, I'll pin them to the channel, and we'll just keep like a really good collection of all the best, most useful weak auras and stuff around. Okay, so that is the bots. Now we will talk about the dungeon. We are going to be kind of moving around here a lot, so I'll kind of just skip through and talk about the mobs as we go. So first off, we'll just talk about this first mob that we're going into. They really don't do too much. The scrap hounds just do I believe it's called a wolf or bork. There it is, right there. And you can see it's a really hard frontal to see, but you can see it. It's all this blue light right here, all these like blue circles or blue dots. That's where their frontal is facing. So you just want to be away from that area. It's a very long range, so it's actually further than what it looks like for most of the time. I think it extends a little further. And if you get hit by it, it just reduces your haste by a lot and does a fair amount of damage. And then the piston head blasters, they just throw grenades on the floor that you don't want to get hit by, or they will kill you. And then we have these weaponized crawlers. These guys will cast 2 main abilities. They will cast Scrap Cannon, which just targets a random player, and then it hits everybody in the line that's lined up with that player. So you want to make sure that no one else is around you or next to you. And then you'll just take a burst of damage. So it's basically single target heal the players that get targeted by the Scrap Cannon, and then when Shock Coil is active on the crawler, it's going to do heavy AoE damage to the entire group. So during Shock Coil, heal the group. During Scrap Cannon, heal the player targeted. And that is pretty much it for the crawlers. And for hierarchies and stuff, you obviously want to be pressing defensives every single time that you get targeted by the scrap cannon, because it will hurt a lot. Okay, and then we have the piston head mechanics here. They will just cast, the only thing that's important is the overcharge, which you can actually let go off if you have a mage in your group, and they can spell seal it. But if you don't have a mage in your group, then you just want to interrupt or stun the piston head mechanics when they're casting overcharge, or sorry, overclock, and then also when they are casting the repair. That will heal any other mobs that are nearby and stuff like that. And then we have these scrap bots here. They don't do too much. The only thing you need to be aware of is that they do something called gyro scrap, which they'll do a big whirlwind around them. So you just want to be away from melee, or be very careful if you are in melee, like a melee healer and stuff. And then after they use gyro scrap, they will cast like a smoke screen on the, or a smoke cloud on the ground. It's exhaust, and you just won't be able to target them unless you're in the smoke with them. So the strategy is you can either walk in and then hit them and then walk out, but once they're out of the smoke, you can target them normally. So after that, it doesn't matter. So just be aware that you will lose line of sight while they're in those clouds for a moment. And sometimes they like to do the gyro scrap inside of the smoke, and it's really unfortunate, but there's not much you can do about it except to wait for them to get out. Alrighty, I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit here because we end up like wiping a whole bunch to this guy. Not gonna talk about the affix. That's probably just gonna be in a separate video or just in the live commentaries that I do. Here we have the weaponized crawler, which we already talked about, so we'll just go ahead and skip ahead. These guys all do the same stuff. The piston head blasters do an extra ability. It's called run and gun, where they will do heavy single target damage to whoever they are. I think it's either closest to or whoever they have aggro on. I'm not 100% sure, but right there you can see the tank took a little burst of damage, and they'll just run across. So the easiest way to deal with it is stun them when they start doing it before they start running away fully, or just be ready to do extra healing when they're doing the run and gun. And then we have the first boss here, which is Trixie Taser and Naeno Mega Crash. They have, I'll just explain the mechanics of each boss individually, and then it's really simple. So Trixie is going to cast Tase just constantly. You want to interrupt it as much as possible, and then she's also going to cast Mega Tase. When she casts Mega Tase, you're going to use these little smoke, these little like dust clouds on the floor that the other boss puts down, and you need to go stand in the dust cloud when you're targeted by Mega Tase. If you're not targeted by it, it doesn't matter. So as a healer, all you need to be aware of, because I don't think we ever get targeted by Mega Tase, I could be wrong, but I have yet to be targeted, and I've ran this like 4 times already, and I don't remember from BFA if I ever got targeted or not. But basically just this is what happens if Tase goes off. Like if it's not interrupted, it just puts a 20-second dot on a player, which is very painful, which is why you want to be interrupting it as much as possible. But if it doesn't get interrupted, just heal the players who are affected by the dot. So just make sure you're tracking the dot somehow. If and when Tase goes off, because you don't have enough interrupts to just like constantly interrupt it unless you're in an organized group. And then the other boss, Naeno Mega Crash, he's gonna be, I'm gonna rewind it just a little bit. He's gonna be on his bike, like zooming around the map for a little bit at the start of the encounter. So all you want to do is look out for him, because he will run you over and instant kill you. It's this rollout ability, and you can see him kind of like winding back and forth in his bike, and that is the direction that he's gonna go. So you can see right here like which way he's facing. So he's going to dash in that direction that he's facing all the way to like the edge of the encounter space. And then he's going to do it again. He's going to put a dust cloud on the floor and then aim a different direction. So you're going to see it right here. So you can see it's aimed directly at me, aimed this way. So we want to get out of the way before he ends up actually dashing. Otherwise, you get hit by it and you die. And then after he does it, after he dashes twice, he's going to get out of his bike. And that's when you want to switch your focus to him and DPS him. So basically it's DPS Trixie while he's on the bike. And then when he gets off the bike, you want to be DPSing Naeno. And then this is also when the Mega Tases will happen. And then other than that, the only thing to be mindful of if you're a melee healer is Naeno will do a frontal. It's Bolt Buster right there, which it just slams wherever the tank is facing, and it will do it'll instant kill you if you're if you get hit by it. So just be aware of Bolt Buster when he does that. And that is the entire boss. We have the scrap bots here again. Okay, so now we're going into the Scrapbone Den. So a lot of these mobs don't really do anything. You can pretty much ignore a lot of them. The Scrapbone grinders, you ideally want to soothe them if you have it available. And you want to interrupt Grasping Hex. You can see it just went off right there in that pack. I might not. There it goes. And Grasping Hex, what it'll do is just root everybody and put this curse on everyone. And it does a lot of damage and just makes it really difficult when you're fighting the other mobs that do a lot of like random damage and stuff that you can avoid just with like swirlies on the floor and stuff. So you want to make sure you interrupt Grasping Hex. Otherwise, it can only be cleansed with Curse Dispel or like Freedom and stuff like that. But it goes on everybody, so it's kind of a problem. These Grunters don't do anything. They're just kind of like little mobs that just do a decent amount of AoE damage to the group. And then we have the Trash Tossers, which just do literally just random like red swirlies on the floor and stuff that you want to watch out for. Oh yeah, and it's the Scrapbone Shamans that do Grasping Hex. Sorry. So those are what you'll want to watch out for, is the Scrapbone Shamans. And we have another Scrap Bot here. Trash Tossers. So these Scrapbone Bullies, they're going to just hit the tank really hard, so make sure you keep the tank nice and healthy. And then they're going to do Shockwave, which you'll see when they do Shockwave, they face a random direction, or usually a player. And then they will do a cast, and then it'll just send out this like wave ability at that player, and it will one-shot you if you're standing in it. So just be aware of that, and then interrupt the Enrages. The Enrages before just weren't interruptible because there was an inspiring mob, so usually you can interrupt the Enrages, so that's another like thing to watch out for to be able to interrupt. And then there's the Shockwave. It's at me. I think I died to this one. Yep, big ouchie. All right, and then we have the boss here. This is King Gobbamak. And really all you need to do is just, there's two main abilities. So there is the Charge Smash and the Rumble. So you're going to see me mark these different pylons here in this robot. So each mark, basically the way that this fight works is the boss is going to do, so first he's going to do Rumble, so I guess I'll explain that first. So Rumble is just a 5-second cast, lots of AoE damage on the group, and lots of swirlies on the floor. So don't get hit by the swirlies or you die. And then at the same time, this is where you want to plan like healing CDs and stuff is for each Rumble. So every single Rumble, you should be using some kind of healing CD, major defensive cooldown, damage reduction, things like this to survive and help your group stay nice and healthy through it. Because right after the Rumble is over, or sometimes right before, there's going to be a Charge Smash. And what Charge Smash does is it goes on the tank. I think we actually wipe on this one and it's all messed up. So I'm actually going to fast forward to the next time we do the boss because that's when we do it correctly. So here it is. And so basically the Charge Smash, sorry, I'm trying to get it to the point where the Rumble's already over, but I'm not going to be able to. Okay, so the Charge Smash, everybody wants to stack on the tank. The Charge Smash will target the tank. It's going to do this big AoE circle on the ground. Everybody needs to stand in it, every single person in the entire group. And then each person wants to go to a separate marker. Obviously, the markers aren't going to be there in most of the groups that you join. But the point is, every player wants to go to a pylon, and then one player needs to go to the robot that's like dead on the floor, kind of like it looks like he's sleeping. And this also knocks you back, so you can kind of pre-position yourself in the circle to get knocked towards whichever pylon you are assigning yourself to go to. So here I'm assigning myself to go to blue, so I get knocked back into blue. It's going to give you this like 20-second long dot debuff on yourself. And then once you get close to a pylon or the robot on the floor, the debuff will like drop off of you and power up these pylons. And you want them all powered up because it kills all the ads so that you're only fighting the boss. So you'll see everybody losing their debuffs as they go to the pylons. And that is pretty much the entire fight. Make sure you charge all the pylons and the robot with the charge smashes. And then use healing cooldowns and damage reduction and stuff to survive the rumbles. And that is literally the fight. And so now you can see that the pattern's switching. So now it's going to be a charge smash into a rumble. So this one you have to be a little more prepared for as far as the rumble goes. So here we're going to get knocked back towards blue. And then I'm going to be immediately ready to heal this rumble. So I'm like immediately topping everybody off. And now the rumble's going to start happening. And now we heal through this. And that is the fight. All right, so here we're going to the outflow. So this very first pack I'll talk about, because there's sometimes you'll fight more of these guys throughout the dungeon. So we have the Mechagon Renormalizer. That's the most important mob here. They're going to cast Enlarge and Shrink. Enlarge is a buff that it puts on allies that you want to purge if you have a purge, or just make sure you interrupt it. And then Shrink is also an interruptible cast, but if the cast goes off, it's going to put a debuff on a magic debuff on somebody in the group. You just want to instantly dispel it because it makes them essentially not be able to do any damage. It like reduces all their damage and healing done by like 99% for the duration. And then also if you step on a shrunk player, that will like stun them or instant kill them. I don't remember exactly what it does, but it's not good. So if you're trolling your friends, don't dispel it and step on them. But if you're in a regular group and you're trying to time the key, then you want to just instantly dispel Shrink. All right, and then we have Toxic Monstrosities. So these guys are going to cast Consume, and it's going to pull everybody into them. And essentially, my tip for this, because what happens is when the Toxic Monstrosity pulls you into it, it's going to also spawn this like pool under its feet. You'll see it here in just a moment. So there's Consume, and you can see this like green pool growing underneath the mob. If anybody steps in this pool, they get a really nasty healing absorb on themselves and a dot until it's a really heavy hitting dot until the healing absorb gets healed all the way through. So usually it's very, very rough. It is a disease dispel, so as a priest you can just dispel it, or like paladin and stuff like that. But you just want to be aware of it because it will kill you if like you or multiple people get stuck in there. Because the debuff will refresh if you're like actually stuck in there, like you dispel yourself, but then you're still in the green stuff on the floor. So the best thing to do is to, because you get pulled in and then the puddle immediately starts growing, don't be far away if you're a ranged class. So don't be all the way out here hitting the bot or hitting the mob. You want to be as like kind of as close as possible, because then when you get pulled in sooner so that you can run out sooner, because you're slowed while you're running out. So it's get pulled in, run all the way out, and then you're good. And then we also have the slime elementals here. So what they do is they are just gonna, the only really important ability you need to watch out for is the, oh man, what is it called? I'm trying to look over my notes here, but it's difficult because this dungeon is so open. It's called Slime Wave, and what Slime Wave will do is the slime elemental. I'm trying to find if that one dashed at all. Let's see if this one. Let's see if he does a slime wave. Is that it? Yep. Oh, okay. It's what hit me earlier. Okay, so yeah, slime wave. He'll just face, or the slime elemental will face a random direction, usually targeted at a player, and then dash in that direction after the cast of slime wave is finished. So just when slime wave is casting, watch where it's facing and don't stand in its path, because it does a lot of damage. Alrighty, and then we have, let's see. The gnome-eating droplets or the gnome-eating slimes will just spawn a bunch of little adds as it starts dying, and they'll all cast Acid Splash, and it'll just start doing a lot of group-wide damage. So when you're pulling the gnome-eating slimes, just be ready to use a lot of AoE healing or even healing cooldowns and stuff. That's where I would recommend probably putting a cooldown or two, is while you're fighting those. And then the last mob that we have is the, where are they? The Toxic Lurkers. I think we pull one somewhere around here. Right there, yeah. And the Toxic Lurkers will just cast Suffocating Smog. It just needs to be interrupted. If it's not interrupted, it just stuns and does a bunch of damage to one player. Like you can see there, it's on the Warlock. You can also Disease Dispel it when they get targeted. And that is it. So then we have the boss up next. And now the boss is going to, the main mechanics of the boss is there are these little water bots around. I think they're called squirt bots. And they have these little like water circles around them. You essentially just want to stay inside the circles at all times, and it'll keep you safe from all the other abilities that the boss does. Because if you touch any of these green puddles on the floor, you're probably going to wipe. So you don't want to touch the green circles on the floor. The only thing to be mindful of, I guess I'll explain these other mechanics real quick first. So Coalesce will pull in all the green puddles, but as long as you are with a squirt bot, you are immune to it. It'll eat up the puddles as they pass through, so you can ignore them. And then Splatter is going to be the thing that you want to watch out for, because the boss is going to spawn a lot of random green swirlies. Again, if you're in the circle of the squirt bot, you are immune to the circles, even if they're spawning on top of you. But while this ability is happening, Splatter, he's going to pick one random bot and stun it and make it the circle go away. So like right here, you can see that this one got stunned, and now that circle is gone. So now if you're standing under it, these green puddles are going to stun you and instantly kill you pretty much. So when the splatter is going off, I would recommend like stepping away from the bot a bit and just being ready to move either to a different bot or to break it out immediately. But basically just don't ignore all the swirlies on the floor, even if you're with a bot, because it can be a little bit dangerous. And just be mindful that one of them is going to get stunned and you're going to need to break it out by doing damage to it. And then lastly, the boss does Toxic Wave. I'm wondering if this one will go off before he dies. It looks like it will. So Toxic Wave is just the opposite of Coalesce. It will just shoot out green circles from the boss in all directions and put it on the outside of the room. So again, just be with a squirt bot and you'll be totally fine. And that is all that boss does. And then other than that, he just does a lot of kind of like passive AoE damage to the group. So just want to be mindful of that. There's the renormalizer again, and then we have the cavalry here. And all they do is they will cast charge, which they just charge a random direction, and then right after the charge, they'll do rapid fire right here, which they face a direction and then like either go clockwise, or I think even sometimes they'll go counterclockwise and just spray bullets in like a frontal. So you just want to work your way around them, or outrange them very far, because even if you're like way out here, you'll still get hit by it. Like the ability actually goes further than it looks. So just be mindful of the rapid fire and make sure you move out of the way when that's happening. And then the only other important mob here is going to be the anodized coil bearer right here, with the little electrical coil on his head. It's kind of hard to see now, but what he'll do is just put a buff on himself, I believe. Oh, actually, it's right there. It's charged coil. It's just a cast that he does, and you just want to interrupt it because it just does AoE damage to the group. There, it didn't hurt very bad, so I don't know if they changed it. And then he puts a little purgeable debuff on himself, so be mindful of that. Okay, and then we have the last boss. So the last boss is pretty straightforward. So the Tank Buster, if you couldn't tell, he's going to hit the tank really hard with an ability called Wreck. It's going to put 3 instances of a debuff on the tank. And it's just going to do heavy damage, and it's going to do like heavier damage the longer the cast goes. So here goes Wreck. So it's going to do a little bit of damage, lots of damage on like the last one. So just basically keep the tank fully healed for Rex. And then other than that, the only real thing that happens is Fulminating Zap, which is just on like a random cast. He just like refreshes it every time that it's about to expire. He'll put it on a new player. So the Fulminating Zaps, you just want to heal, like spot heal the player as Fulminating Zap. So it's literally heal the player with Fulminating Zap, keep the tank alive for Rex. And that is all. The little robots around the room that you saw spawn that walk around, these little walkie-shockies, they can be stunned, slowed, rooted. Mass root is huge for this dungeon, and then they'll just self-destruct after a while, and you just want to stay away from them and stay away from the pools that they drop on the floor. And then once the Tank Buster is dead, that's not the actual boss. So next we're going to need to go up to one of these coils up on the like outside of the encounter space. The way you can tell which one it is whichever I think I look up here in a moment. Maybe. So there. So see how this one is all lit up, and then when I look the other way, this one's all like electrified. Oh wait. Uh-oh. Wait. How do you tell which one it is? I could have sworn that's the way that you told which one it was. Hold on. There's a way to tell which one it's gonna be. Oh man. I have to keep watching this. Sorry. I know for sure there's a way to tell like which one it's going to be. I think it's actually where the boss is flying over, maybe. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, it's difficult to tell. But you'll see the boss zap one of them, and then you'd need to run up to that coil that you see up there. And there's going to be like a little obstacle course that you have to run through, and everybody in the group's going to be taking a light amount of AoE damage the entire time. So kind of top everybody up as you're going. And then the secret to this is you can either do it the way it's intended, which is kind of like walk around it and go clockwise. You have to avoid the lights, you have to avoid the electricity, and you have to avoid the bots. So essentially what I do is I just run over this when it's not all electrified, and then you can jump over these if you time it properly. You can jump over the lights, and there I messed up. I jumped into the stun, and now we're just running through, and then you just zigzag through the bots. Just watch out because they spawn up here at the top, and then you're just going to click on this coil, and then you just charge it up, and you can see once I target it, you'll see it has like a energy bar, and you're just trying to bring that to 0, and then you go back to the boss. And when these guys are walking around, the secret is instead of running away from them and just constantly having to run from them, just wait until this middle thing goes off. So you're going to see it's all lit up, so it's about to go off. There it goes off and stuns everybody that's in it. And then now what we're going to do is once this goes off, you just run around the bot. I do it at the very beginning, so I'll just rewind it to that point. Sorry, we're charging it very quickly. So we run up here, and then you'll see me like start charging it, and then this goes off in the middle. It stops. Now I just walk through it and walk around the bot, and now that bot has to go all the way around before it gets back to me even having to worry about it. So it's very, very nice to be able to do that. And then right before the energy is about to expire, so here you can see the energy at the bottom. So it's at like 12 energy, 8, 6. When it gets to 0, that's when it phases. So what you can do is actually make yourself get sent down early with the robots. Usually as a healer, I'd probably just stay up there and let the DPS go early if they know how to do it. But you just intentionally get hit by one of the alarm bots, and it sends you back to the beginning. And then now you're here ready for the burn, so that you don't have to run all the way back down when it's over. And then once the thing hits 0 energy, the boss falls down, and now you have 30 seconds to do as much damage as possible to the boss. Otherwise, the fight kind of like resets, and you have to do it again and burn the boss again. So this is where you would lust, this is where you'd press all your damage buttons, and just as a healer, there's nothing happening here, so you're just doing as much damage as you possibly can to this thing. And then once the boss hits 0%, you are all done, and that is the dungeon. So that is Mechagon Junkyard. Sorry if it was a little bit disorganized. I wrote down notes, and then I realized that this VOD that I took, because the VOD I took notes on was in the PTR, and then now this VOD is like, we did a completely different route. So all my notes are like jumbled up. But yeah, that's Junkyard. So hope you have fun with the new dungeons and stuff in Season 4, and I'll have more of these guides coming out. I'm probably going to finish the other ones throughout the weekend and then also next week. So hopefully we'll have all 8 dungeon guides done and ready and uploaded by week 2. So yeah, have a good one. Thank you.